Welcome to the National Black MBA Virtual Conference and Career Fair. My name is Ashton Clark, and I am a National Black MBA board member, co-founder of TicketFalcon.com, and director at Starcom. Today is a new type of session for us. It's called Ask Me. We will have Brandon Brookins from DTCC who will be answering your pressing questions about FinTech live. This session is sponsored by DTCC. So who is Brandon? Brandon Brookins is currently a business transformation specialist at DTCC, where he began his professional journey 6 years ago as a graduate of the University of Houston downtown. Graduating with a BS in computer science, Brandon has held several roles across IT service management, product management, and now internal consulting. Driven by a desire to exceed expectations, he takes pride in providing the highest quality solutions possible. In addition to his primary job functions, Brandon serves as the Dallas site lead for the BOLD ERG. BOLD stands for Black Organizers and Leaders of DTCC. Without further ado, let's welcome Brandon Brookins.
Good afternoon.
How are you, Brandon?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us. Remember, this session is where you get to ask Brandon any type of question you have about DTCC as well as FinTech. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off and let's get into it. All right. So tell us a little bit about DTCC.
Sure. So we are the central clearinghouse for the U.S. capital markets and the first and only global trade repository for the derivatives market. We protect and support the growth of the financial markets through clearing millions of transactions for securities each day.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for the overview. So can you tell everyone, what does a senior business systems analyst do?
So that always depends on your actual role that you move into. As you mentioned, I've had several roles throughout my time at DTCC. Since I stepped into a SBA role, for example, when I was a product manager, I was managing the financials for our connectivity products. So we have a suite of 7 products that our clients connect into DTCC to clear and settle with, as well as now moving into my role in the business transformation office. It's a little bit different. We create solutions to help support internal decisions for the organization.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. So can you give us what a day in your life looks like?
Sure. So my work day starts around 7:45 local time, where we have my squad has our stand-up meeting just to go over any blockers or any opportunities for the book of work that we've taken on for that given sprint. As you may have picked up on, any tech people out there, I do work in an agile squad, Scrum squad. So we have our different ceremonies, such as that one where we go through our book of work, prioritize work, and then from there, it's really full autonomy for you to then go and allocate your time as best as possible. And then once the sprint is over, we come together, demo, and review.
That's great. So when did you first get introduced to Agile? Because you have more of the traditional waterfall projects, which can take, well over a year to complete, and then more Agile where you could have, 2 or 3 week sprints. So when did you get first introduced to Agile methodologies?
So as you mentioned, I have a CS degree. So my introduction first started off in college with one of my developmental classes where we were working on the different software models and development models. From there, I didn't see it again until recently. Over the last 2 to 3 years, our company has switched to the agile ways of working in order to better support the financial markets through adaptability and failing fast.
Got it. Yeah, no, that's great. It's great experience. So can you tell us, how did you get into this field of work? When you talk about this notion of FinTech, I mean, can you also give a brief overview of what that is for those who may not be as familiar?
Sure. So FinTech, to put it as simple as possible, is just financial technology for the most part. So building technology solutions that support financial transactions as well as the activity within the financial markets. I never had aspirations or looked to get into FinTech. As everyone else that goes off to college, gets a degree, you're anxious to get into the workforce and prove your years of learning actually has paid off. So upon looking for a job after graduation, I was looking through the different ads and there was this obscure job description that came up and it said DTCC, which it also noted stood for the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, for those that aren't aware. And I applied for it just like I applied for thousands of other jobs probably in that first month to 2 months. I actually received a call back, went in for the interview, left the interview still not really understanding what the company does. Ultimately received the job, went off to training in Jersey City, and after the second day, I knew that it was a place that I could call home to start my career off.
So with that said, you've been at the DTCC for 6 years. So I'm just curious on the culture. I mean, that's a nice amount of time, especially for, millennials. I'm a millennial, I'll be honest. I'm assuming you're in that category too. And so with that said, I mean, let's talk about, your experience at the culture. I mean, you've been there 6 years and that's great. So what's keeping you?
What's keeping me is the opportunity. Being a smaller company, it allows you the opportunity to actually have FaceTime with some C-level people that you would not meet in a large organization of 20,000 people, 30,000 people, as well as the promotion of mobility that DTCC does push. So as you mentioned in my readout, this is my, I want to say, 4th or 5th role within the organization. And so new challenges, new opportunities to grow and learn is what's kept me here for all these years.
That's great. When you say it's the 4th or 5th opportunity, I think that ability to learn new skills, work with new people is just amazing, right? Because that just helps you to get new exposure. So with that said, given your current work, what is the biggest misconception people have about working in the tech industry?
I would say that people have probably a narrow view of what working in the tech industry is. We all know the big names, Google, Facebook, companies like that. And so a lot of people only really think about programming. And though I have programming skills, on a day-to-day basis, it's not what I do. There are many aspects of technology. So you have your development of actual applications, and then you have the systems and the networks that support those technologies. That's something that I, even myself, having a degree in the sciences, was not aware of until I joined DTCC and was placed in my first role. So I think that's probably the biggest misconception. And then also, just like I said, understanding that you have FinTech, you have the health services. Tech can be anywhere.
That makes sense. So Rebecca has a question. Her question is, there are so many tech certifications out there. Do you still need a degree?
I would think so, just from the simple fact of competition. I think that a lot of these certifications that are out there now are very helpful in, for sure, advancing your career, as well as getting your feet wet and introducing you, to a given career path. But I think that nothing beats having that actual degree, just because if I have to vet one person against another, you always want to go with the one that you have a higher comfort level with. And with that being said, I'd rather go in there with the degree rather than going in there with that certification. But they're definitely worth the time.
And what I'm hearing is that definitely getting the degree, but also if you can get some certifications.
Absolutely.
Right? Absolutely, yeah. So Darius has a question, and his question is, how did you gain the trust in your organization that enabled you to move so swiftly?
That's a good question. I would think that the biggest thing is that I walked in the door and I got involved. So as previously mentioned, I am the site lead for the Bold ERG in our organization. I started off, I'll say, at the bottom of the ERG, where I was helping out at events. Once I got in the office, it allowed me to meet different people across different departments, and to really kind of learn more about the organization. And from there, it's gotten me recognized by C-level executives as well as other people within the organization, to where I'm a known face rather than, just someone that you pass by in the hallway.
Absolutely. So you got your name out there. You met people in different levels in your organization, which has helped you in your current journey. So my next question on that is, so let's talk about your current team, right? So you work in FinTech, and I'm sure you have a diverse team. So what does that look like? Who are you working with on a day-to-day basis?
So we have a squad of about 5 to 6 individuals. Our specific squad is kind of split up between the technical side and then the marketing side of it. So our biggest thing is providing solutions that help drive decision-making within the organization. So one of the biggest things on our plate right now, of course, is the pandemic and how that's affecting our ways of working as an organization. So we kind of play off of one another to shoulder that workload and come up with dashboards, data sets, other things that help support decisions and information for those C-level executives on how people are feeling about this current period of time.
Yeah, and you bring up COVID, and I'm glad you did, because even in my industry, a lot of businesses, if not most, were impacted by it. And what I'm hearing from you is that it didn't slow you down, right? What I'm capturing is that you found ways to work collectively in your team to achieve the goals that you had set, right? And I think that's just great for people to hear. And so when you think about learning and just getting exposure into this industry, because I think you said, you weren't aware of it, you came upon this information, this opportunity, and here you are. I mean, what advice do you have for people who are looking to do something similar? I mean, how can they get into a FinTech type role?
I would say definitely just look. You never know what you're gonna run into. We definitely have some openings, so if you're interested, we can definitely see if that's a fit. But honestly, it's just getting your foot in the door, making connections with people that are in that organization. So I would definitely use tools such as LinkedIn, Jockwell, even Fairy Godboss, to find out what those roles are and who those individuals are in those organizations, and just reach out. People such as myself never have a problem making that connection on LinkedIn, Jockwell, what have you, and giving you some of that information on where you might be a potential fit.
Yeah, and one thing I live by is the following quote. It's networking is one letter away from not working. I'll let that resonate one time with everyone, but networking is one letter away from not working. You said something that was very critical. You said you have no problem with people reaching out to you for you to be able to connect them as necessary. I think that's just great, because it's important for us to help one another. So I appreciate that. So Sydney has a question. What undergraduate or MBA courses should she take if she's interested in pursuing financial technology?
I would say the biggest thing that I would work on is your data analytics skills, and any course that kind of supports the fundamentals of data analytics. So for example, if you're interested in financial technology, I would take a Python course that will give you the foundations of coding in Python, and then I would branch off of that and learn how to do some data analysis with Python. That instantly will put you ahead of the curve. That is a skill that is definitely in high demand right now across the board.
That's great. That's great. Python. Okay, I don't know Python, but I'm going to have to add that to my roster. Next question from Mano. What's your view or opinion about life cycle or waterfall methodology as everyone is shifting to agile?
I think you have to do what works best for you. I am definitely a believer in agile, in the fact that, simply by allowing yourself to come up with some sort of a minimum viable product definitely helps drive solutions a lot better than, getting to the end of a long drawn out project where you've put a lot of funding and time into it only to have circumstances change, and maybe we need more in this area rather than in this area, and you having to go back to the drawing board, waste another month or two in order to get to the end of the road. I think it's always better if you can flush certain issues out ahead of time and earlier in the process rather than after you've kind of bled at the sword a little bit.
Yeah, and that's interesting, right? Because with those traditional waterfall projects, I mean, you can have an idea about something, and by the time you build it, the things around you can change. And so then you have to go back to the drawing board, you spent money. Or the second part of that, which I think is interesting too, is requirements, right? If your requirements are poor and you've already built and poured into a system and it didn't work, then you spend so much time. Whereas with agile, you can adjust fairly quickly. So I think that's great insight for everyone.
And that was the biggest driver in our space is, with the financial markets, as you're all aware, it's ever changing. So you definitely have to be able to drive value for the clients sooner rather than later.
Agree. Rebecca has a question. Can you tell us about other special projects and initiatives to recruit minorities?
Sure. So some of the things that we're doing right now is it's a twofold approach. One, we're focusing on a sense of belonging within the organization. So with our ERGs, we've restructured a bit in order to try to make sure that we're better supporting all of the current diverse talent that we have within the organization. Outside of that, there's been a heavier attention that's been paid to HBCUs and other sources of talent that have been overlooked for too long. I would say. And then just also some internal programs that take high potential talent and make sure that they're progressing and developing and getting the support that they need within the organization.
You said a lot of good nuggets. I just want to recap. It's just getting exposure to talent outside of the more traditional routes, like going to HBCUs, which has fantastic talent. Let's just be clear about that. And then secondly, providing opportunities for advancement. I think that's just critical, and I'm glad you brought that up. So once again, I want to reiterate to everyone on this live Ask Me session to ask your questions. We have Brandon here from DTCC who's ready to answer any questions about FinTech that you may have. So Maisha is on, and her question is, what are some of the roles that you've had or in your current role regarding exposure to Black C-level executives?
So some of my roles I've had, I came into the organization in the service management space. So I was on the incident and problem management team, reviewing any of our system incidents and failures that could potentially lead to wider spread outages. I moved from that role into a role that was the product manager for our smart suite of products. So there's about 7 products within that suite that brings in a revenue of millions of dollars a year. I moved out of that role into DevSecOps, where we were focusing on using those agile principles in order to develop the solutions of the future for our company. And then from there, I'm currently in the business transformation office, where we're looking to improve our ways of working and support the decision-making individuals within the organization. As far as the second half of the question, there are Black C-suite executives in the company. One thing that they're not shy about is the understanding that there needs to be more, just like any other organization. So that's why they've really focused on some of the programs and initiatives that are going on right now in order to make sure that, diverse talent is progressing and can be viewed as viable replacements for some of those executives when they decide to retire and go on to other exciting things in life.
That's great. Thank you for answering. So Patrick has a question. What are some great resources for someone who wants to learn beginners coding?
I would definitely leverage Udemy. That's something that's a website, udemy.com, Udemy, for when I wanted to learn something new or kind of like dip my toe in the water to see if I was interested in that. Also, there's Coursera out there. That's a good resource for learning Python. I recently was speaking with someone that had done a certificate course through them. And then my tried and true method is picking out a book and starting at the beginning of it and working my way all the way through the end. A lot of times in some of those courses, they may skip over things or kind of organize them in a way that gets you to the end, where a book is going to be very methodical and is going to walk you through the ins and the outs of it. So the one line of books that I recommend is Gaddis, Tony Gaddis, Gaddis, I believe. He has a good series of starting out with blank, so C++ or Python, what have you.
And Brandon, what I've heard is that you've used your resources. You found ways, whether they be online through classes or even books, right? Books to figure out how you can learn new skill sets and expand what you currently know. I think that's just outstanding, and I'm glad you were able to share that. So remember, folks, ask any question that you have to Brandon about FinTech or DTCC, and we're here to answer all of your questions. So I want to go back to the Bold ERG. Tell us just a little bit more about it and some of the things you've been working on, especially during these times.
The Bold ERG is one of the things that I'm most proud of my time at DTCC. When you can jump in and one, just lend a helping hand to something that you believe in, that is rewarding within itself. But also it's afforded me a lot of opportunities to express myself creatively. So for example, a couple years back, I put together a short documentary that kind of spoke to the Black experience in America. And from there, even this past Juneteenth, we put together another short documentary with some different employees within the organization where they got a chance to express what they feel being Black is to them. So if you go to my LinkedIn page, I believe I actually have that video posted somewhere on there.
That's great. Thank you. So Dominique is on, and she says, hello. Question. Curious to know if you can speak towards any projects you or DTCC are working on in the emerging global markets. I've been fascinated with how FinTech is helping transform economies in West Africa.
That's a good question. I'm not quite certain, to be honest. I wouldn't lie to you. The one thing that I know is that especially in times like right now, a lot of the focus is on emerging technology within the financial markets. So a lot of investigation, of course, when distributed ledger really became like the hot topic, and Bitcoin and all those other technologies jumped out there and made their claims. But I'm not quite certain on the emerging global markets part. And thank you for asking that question so I can go back and do my own work on that.
Absolutely. Maisha, here's her question. Do you mentor young African Americans within your BRG and outside of your job? We'll start there.
I do. So one of the things that I've also had the opportunity to do since I've been in DTCC is mentor a lot of the younger talent that's come into the organization. But also I've had different opportunities to go and speak to some of the younger youth that were looking to go to college and things of that nature. More importantly, outside of myself, we do often have different partnerships such as Girls Who Code, things of that nature that reach out there and try to put that bug in the young kids' ear on, you know, technology and coding and how they can get into that space.
That's great. So we have 5 minutes remaining. So we're doing really well. Rebecca, she asked, if I'm applying to DTCC, how can I make my resume stand out?
Good question. I would always say stick to the basics. So first and foremost, don't go and just throw a bunch of stuff on there. Overdoing it. The typical resume advice. I would definitely lean heavy into like some of the different experiences that you've had that you feel relate to the job that you're looking for. Second of all, I think the biggest thing is just, don't just apply, like definitely reach out. Like I said, LinkedIn is a terrific tool for that. Find different individuals within DTCC that you see are in the space that you've applied for, or just reach out to myself and I can try to link you with the appropriate people to really make sure that you have the best application process possible.
That's great. One thing I want to reemphasize is that you said you will help to connect for any of the individuals on this specific live Meet Me session who may need it. So we're coming down to the last few minutes here. And one of the things I wanted to ask you was like when you were in, and I'm going back to when you were in college, right? Because I think this is important. So I have a technical side as well, been there too. But one of the things I want to know is what got you through probably some of those more difficult classes as you were becoming acclimated? Because I think for us in this space, it can be difficult, right? But there has to be something that's motivating us and gets us through those difficult times. So what is that for you?
Two things. First and foremost, I would say from a technical standpoint, I always tell people I got 2 degrees. I got one from the actual university and one from YouTube University. So from a technical aspect, I really leaned on that for some of those tough classes. But more important than all of that, just the example that was set by my mom, seeing her go through her undergraduate studies, dealing with myself and my handicapped sister, and having to balance that with also working and trying to get her degree at Paul Quinn College here in Dallas. That's something that if she can do it, I knew that I could do it, and I pushed through.
That's powerful. You mentioned your mother and your sister. You said that if they can do it, so can you. That's just powerful to have supporters who are rooting for you throughout all stages of your life. I think that's super powerful. So I know we're coming up on 3 minutes left. And one of the questions that were asked is, with COVID-19, do you see any opportunities for people to work remotely?
Definitely. So, as I mentioned, that's one of the things that we've been really evaluating, as an organization. No definitive future plans have been announced. But the biggest things that I think the world has proven that we can work remotely and still be just as productive in most situations as if we were in the office. So I think the biggest thing is that the attitude and some of the stigmas against working from home have eased up a bit. We have also unveil some of the challenges of working from home as well. We've all heard some of the funny or sad stories that have come out of that. But I definitely feel that within our organization, you'll see a higher tolerance towards working from home, and just like any other organization.
That's great. And I think we have time for one more question. Is there one? If not, I have one that I can certainly ask. And to kind of add to that, I think I read that there were 99% of the DTCC team is working remotely. Did I see that correctly? Wow, that's awesome. And I also saw that there are over 100 open roles within DTCC today, right? Today. So this is my commercial. I'll do it. If there's something that interests you, make it happen.
Something that says apply now.
Right. Apply at the link below, right? But yeah, if there's a role that you're interested in within DTCC, I highly encourage everyone to do it, because I've enjoyed our sessions today, Brand. I hope you have as well. And my understanding is this is the first time that you've attended our conference. And I mean, I know it's been virtual, but one thing, parting words do you have for everyone that's participating today? What's one thing you want everyone to know as they walk away?
I'll say that first and foremost, we're hiring. So if you're interested, absolutely reach out. And then two, just stay diligent, stay encouraged, and, follow whatever your aspirations are, and don't give up.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, I want to formally thank you on behalf of the organization and the board of directors for speaking with us during the Ask Me session, which is sponsored by your company, DTCC. Remember, everyone, there are jobs available. Go onto their website, which is listed right below, and find the role that is best for you. With that said, thanks again. And we look forward to seeing everyone during the rest of the conference. And there will be another Ask Me session with yours truly tomorrow afternoon. Thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you soon.